What would you do if your wife disappeared onto a balcony with her coworker for 20 minutes and returned fixing her lipstick? No screaming, no scene, just a man staring at the truth with a calm that cuts deeper than rage. This is not the story of a man who lost his temper. It is the story of one who watched quietly, gathered evidence like a forensic auditor, and ended everything she took for granted the very next morning. If you think the betrayal is the worst part, wait until you see the way he walked away without raising his voice. The Langford Hotel ballroom smelled like polished oak, winter roses, and old money. Chandeliers glowed like suspended suns above the dance floor, scattering warm gold across sequins, suits, and champagne that never seemed to stop refilling. A jazz band near the stage eased through an old Sinatra tune, the kind meant for people who once believed in forever. I remember thinking everything looked perfect that night. Too perfect. Like a still frame seconds before the bullet lands, James Walker stood near the edge of the room, one hand wrapped around a cold flute of champagne, the other resting in his pocket like he was grounding himself. He was the kind of man who measured twice, cut once, the quiet backbone type. His shirt collar was crisp, his tie a dark navy that matched his calm demeanor. He was not flashy, not loud. He was present, steady. A man who built a life instead of performing one. Rachel was the opposite, magnetic, laughing easily, eyes bright under the ambient light. Her red dress hugged her like she was born to be in it. When she leaned in to speak to her coworkers, they listened. When she touched someone's arm mid-conversation, they lit up. She knew how to occupy a room. James used to love that about her. Daniel Grant arrived late, tall, polished, department lead with the confidence of someone who never doubted his welcome. He moved like a man used to winning. Rachel noticed him instantly, and James noticed her noticing. A small thing. A flicker. But small things build fault lines in silence. The band shifted into a slower tempo. Someone clinked a glass, making a toast about the company's growth projections and Q4 survivability. Laughter burst around them. Camera flashes. Executive smiles. James raised his glass, but he was not listening. His eyes kept drifting to Rachel, and then to Daniel. They talked too close. Her hand lingered on his sleeve too long. They slipped out the side door leading to the balcony like two shadows choosing darkness. No goodbye, no check-in with her husband. Just gone. James stood still. His heartbeat did not race, it sank, like an anchor dropped into icy water. His training mind, shaped by years of project management, construction timelines, safety protocols, went quiet. Observation mode engaged. When you detect a structural crack, you do not panic. You note, you document, you wait to see if it spreads. Minutes passed. 10, 15. He did not chase. He did not call. He just watched the closed balcony door reflect the ballroom lights, listened to the muffled jazz, and counted time in his head like phases of a system audit. When Rachel returned, her lipstick was smudged, then freshly reapplied. She checked her reflection in the window, smoothing her hair, adjusting her dress. Daniel followed a moment later, entering from a different angle. Not together, but not far apart. She smiled when she saw James, too bright, too rehearsed. She kissed his cheek, leaving the faintest scent of cologne that was not his, muskier, sharper. James did not pull away. He let her hold his arm and lead him back toward the dance floor as if nothing was wrong. Inside, something cracked. A quiet, clean fracture. James watched her laugh again, brighter than before, like she carried a secret electric thrill under her skin. The jazz picked up, couples swayed, the room shimmered under whiskey-colored light. People talked about promotions, interest rates, holiday bonuses. Life kept moving. No one else saw what he saw, But James had already recorded every detail, time-stamped, archived in memory like encrypted logs waiting for review. Her lipstick, the balcony absence, Daniel's undone composure, the scent, the slight tremor in her fingers when she picked up her glass. He did not confront her. He did not speak. He simply inhaled slowly, exhaled once, and something inside him went cold, the kind of cold that does not melt. From that moment on, he was not a husband celebrating a winter gala. He was a man who had just witnessed the beginning of the end. It started long before the balcony, long before the lipstick, long before James learned what quiet betrayal feels like in the bones. James and Rachel first met in the rain outside a hardware store in Tacoma. He was helping his father repair an old fishing boat back then, hands rough from labor, clothes smelling like sawdust and salt. Rachel dashed from her car with a broken umbrella, laughing as the wind flipped it inside out. James held the door open for her. She thanked him with a smile wide enough to make a stranger feel chosen. It was simple, unplanned, like most things that later become important. Their first date was coffee in a small cafe with fogged windows, jazz on the overhead speaker. Two people sharing childhood stories, as if the future had already decided for them. Rachel talked about her dream to climb corporate ladders, to not just survive life, but win it. James talked about stability, building things that last, even if slowly. They were different currents flowing in parallel, but parallel felt close enough back then. When the recession hit, James lost his job for 8 months. Their apartment was a shoebox above a deli that never closed, smelling like bread and grease at all hours. They ate instant noodles, split rent with coupons and late fees, counted dollars like soldiers count ammunition. Rachel worked double shifts at a local retail store while studying business management online at night. James spent mornings fixing broken heaters, patching drywall for neighbors, taking any work that paid even a fraction. They learned survival, not glamorous but intimate. There were nights they sat on the fire escape sharing one cheap blanket, watching rain smear the city lights. Rachel's head rested on his shoulder, her voice soft when she promised, "One day we will have more. One day we will not have to fight this hard." James believed her. Maybe that was the first foundation stone he ever laid for her. Belief. Eventually, things got better. James climbed back into work through a construction firm, later promoted to project manager. Rachel finished her degree, joined a tech distribution company as an assistant, then a coordinator, and finally, a team lead. Every achievement she earned made her glow a little brighter. Every paycheck James brought home made him stand a little taller. They were partners then, two survivors who earned their peace. Marriage came quietly, a courthouse ceremony, rings they could barely afford, a few photos taken by a friend with a borrowed camera. It was not Instagram beautiful, but it was real. Rachel looked at him like he was home. James looked at her like she was future. Years passed. Routine settled like winter frost. Mortgage, grocery lists, Sunday pancakes, work emails at dinner, fewer kisses in hallways. Sex became scheduled between deadlines, not cold, just familiar, the way worn leather warms by memory, not fire. Rachel's ambition grew like wildfire, reaching for promotions, conferences, circles of people with sharper suits and larger egos. James felt proud, until pride slowly turned into distance. She lived in calendars and email threads. He lived in blueprints and safety reports. They still loved each other, or so they thought. But love can sleep, and sometimes it does not wake up at the same time. Little changes happened quietly. She bought new dresses, new perfume. She stayed late more often. She laughed at jokes from work that James never heard. He noticed her happiness lived somewhere outside their apartment now. He told himself growth is good, independence healthy. He gave her space, too much space. James was not insecure. He was steady, like reinforced steel. But even steel fatigues. You do not see fractures until pressure reaches a point of failure. He trusted her. Trusted more than he should have. And maybe trust, once blind, becomes easy to exploit. Looking back, maybe the rain was trying to warn them the first night they met. Storms always return, even after years of calm skies. There is a moment in every marriage when something small feels suddenly unfamiliar, like walking into your own living room and realizing a chair has been moved 2 inches. It should mean nothing. Yet it does. For James, it began with Rachel's phone lighting up at midnight. Once, twice, then almost habitually. She would turn away in bed, screen reflected in her eyes like a secret. He asked once who it was. She replied, casual, just work. Daniel sent the new vendor schedule. Then she placed the phone face down. A soft click against the nightstand, barely audible. Still, it echoed. James shifted beside her but said nothing else. He watched instead. That was his nature. Surveillance over confrontation. In construction risk assessment, you document anomalies first, respond later. Emotion is noise. Data is truth. She changed her perfume, something sharper, layered with jasmine and something woodsy underneath. Not the warm vanilla scent she wore for years. This one belonged to boardrooms, not bedrooms. James noticed the first morning she left for work in a tailored blazer he had never seen before. Makeup precise, like corporate armor. He complimented her. She smiled, distracted, already half out the door. On Fridays, she used to bring home pizza, kick off her heels, curl up on their couch with Netflix and a cheap bottle of wine. Lately, she came home later. Team happy hour, last-minute meeting, client dinner. The words stacked like excuses do. Perfectly stable until one day they collapse. James never accused her. He simply observed. He noticed how she laughed when she texted sometimes. Not the soft domestic laugh she gave him when he said something mildly funny, but a sharper one, unfiltered, like she was laughing with someone who touched the quick part of her joy. Someone she wanted to impress. He began cooking dinner for one more often. Chicken cooling on the table. Pasta drying at the edges. He would eat alone, scroll through market reports, check forecast numbers for upcoming builds. Stability metrics soothed him when people did not. Sometimes she came home smelling faintly of cologne that was not his. He told himself it clung from office hugs, crowded elevators, proximity. Logical explanations. But logic does not erase instinct. Instinct is a tripwire. Once triggered, you cannot unpull it. Saturday mornings used to be theirs. Grocery run, car wash, breakfast at the diner down on 5th Street where they always ordered too much bacon. But she started going to yoga instead. Or brunch with coworkers. James never forbade, never demanded. He is not that man. But distance grows like rust, slow, patient, irreversible if ignored. One evening, she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, and a message preview flashed before the screen dimmed. Cannot stop thinking about last night. No name, just that sentence. A digital footprint. Small, but devastating. Rachel came back into the room before he could read more. She closed the lid quickly, too quickly. Her smile was thin. James looked at her, eyes steady as leveled steel. He said nothing. He simply let the silence stretch like tension in a beam right before it bends. That night, he lay beside her, watching ceiling shadows trace patterns like grid lines. Her breathing was calm. She slept easily. He did not. His mind catalogued every detail, building an internal case like cybersecurity tracing intrusion logs. If another man is inside your network, you do not make noise. You monitor, you gather proof. You wait for the breach to reveal itself fully. Rachel kissed his cheek before work the next morning. A routine gesture. Normal. But James felt nothing. Not warmth, not resentment. Just a cold understanding that something sacred was slipping away, not violently but quietly, the way light leaves a room when a door is gently closed. He did not confront her, not yet. He chose stillness, observation. A soldier sitting in the dark before the first strike. Because some wars are won by patience, not rage. The night of the Winter Gala was supposed to be celebration. Bonuses announced, deals closed. A year survived in a market that chewed through weaker companies like paper. James arrived dressed in charcoal gray, tie knotted clean, posture calm as always. Rachel sparkled beside him, red dress bright enough to own the room. People complimented them as a couple. "You two look great," someone said. James smiled, polite, steady. He felt proud to stand beside her. Then, the ballroom pulsed with jazz and soft conversation. Corporate laughter, champagne flutes clinking, polished shoes gliding across marble like the night was built for beautiful people. James stayed observant. He always did. He could tell which executives were bluffing by their grip during handshakes, which managers drank too quickly under stress, who feared the coming quarter by how often they checked their phone. He read rooms like blueprints, find the weak beams, the possible collapse points. Rachel drifted through the crowd like she belonged there, confident, magnetic, alive. James watched her speak with Daniel by the bar, too close, her fingers touching her necklace when she laughed. She never did that with James anymore. Small tells, tension points, warning signs. Daniel leaned in, whispered something. Rachel's eyes flickered, excitement, guilt, thrill. Then she reached for his arm lightly, as if asking without words. They moved toward the balcony door, weaving through people unnoticed, slipping into winter air beyond the glass. James stood perfectly still. He did not chase, did not call her name. He let them go. He lifted his drink, took a measured sip. The bubbles tasted bitter. The room remained loud, but around him everything felt quiet, like snow settling over a battlefield after the final shot. His colleagues talked, asked questions about project timelines, upcoming site inspections. He answered with precision, voice steady, mind elsewhere tracking time like counting seconds before detonation. 5 minutes. 7. 10. A security camera could not have recorded more clearly than James's memory did. He glanced toward the balcony door. Frosted glass, 2 silhouettes. One leaned close. The other did not pull away. He exhaled once, slow, controlled. This was not suspicion anymore. Suspicion is fog. What he saw was shape, outline, certainty. 20 minutes later, Rachel came back through a different door than Daniel. Her lipstick, once perfect, was smudged. She fixed it quickly with practiced ease, unaware she was being observed like anomaly logs during a breach investigation. When her eyes met James across the room, she smiled too wide, walked toward him with champagne in hand. She brushed his arm lightly like nothing happened, like loyalty was air, invisible, taken for granted. "You okay?" she asked. James nodded. "Just enjoying the night." His tone was even. No tremor, no accusation. Calm, like a man who has already accepted impact. He guided her to the dance floor. They swayed under golden lights, her hand resting on his shoulder, his hand on her waist. Anyone watching would see a loving couple. But inside, James was silent steel. Not hurt yet, not angry, just awake. Rachel talked about quarterly targets. a new conference she might attend in Portland, how Daniel recommended her for a leadership program. James listened, cataloged, stored for later like evidence in encrypted archives. At one point, she excused herself to the restroom. Daniel reappeared moments later, adjusting his tie loosely, hair slightly out of place. He avoided James's eyes. Guilt is loud even when unspoken. James did not confront him. He simply observed the micro-expression, that half-second flinch most men miss. He finished his drink, ordered another. He smiled at co-workers, thanked the CEO for the event, shook hands with precision. To others, he looked like a man enjoying the evening. Inside, he was building a plan. Quiet, methodical, like preparing demolition charges in a structure that no one realized was already unstable. No shouting, no scene. The most powerful storms make no sound until they break. When the night ended, James drove home with one hand on the wheel, city lights flickering across the windshield like passing thoughts. Rachel hummed beside him, scrolling her phone, unaware that something irreversible had shifted. James did not hold her hand. He did not kiss her goodnight. He simply watched her fall asleep, makeup wiped away, vulnerability soft. He sat in the dark living room afterward. No TV, no noise, just breathing. A calm so heavy it felt like snowfall inside his chest. The balcony was the moment of fracture. The rest would be collapse, controlled, precise, inevitable. The days after the gala moved with a strange stillness, like a lake surface right before it freezes. James did not explode, did not accuse. He simply switched modes, from husband to observer, from trust to audit. Love did not vanish. It calcified into something sharper, something that wanted truth instead of comfort. He started by checking their shared phone account. Nothing invasive, just numbers and durations. Patterns emerged, late-night calls labeled work, repeated numbers that were not saved as contacts, messages sent during hours she had sworn she was asleep. Not damning alone, but enough to widen the fracture. Rachel began taking business trips 2 towns over. Overnight stays for strategy workshops. She packed lightly, always the same perfume, new heels she claimed she got on sale. James kissed her goodbye at the door with a calm so composed it felt like frost. She smiled, relieved, perhaps. Guilt looks a lot like excitement when someone thinks they have gotten away with something. James took a personal day the second time she left for a trip. He drove to her conference hotel, parked across the street where anonymity lived. He watched from the cab of his truck, heater running, windshield wipers clearing sleet. At 10:42 p.m., Daniel walked out of the lobby with Rachel beside him, both laughing, heads close against the cold. She wore the same smile she once saved for James. James lifted his phone. The shutter sound was quiet, but inside it cracked like thunder. The next morning, she came home glowing. Tired, but glowing. She kissed his cheek, poured herself coffee in her favorite white mug. When she left for work, she forgot it unfinished on the table. James noticed a faint smear of lipstick on the rim. The shade was deeper than the one she used at home. New, unfamiliar. Evidence, tiny but undeniable. Love, when wounded, turns into clarity. It strips illusion like paint thinner. He checked her laptop while she showered one morning. He did not dig. He just looked at what was left open. Email drafts to Daniel about Portland conference planning. Calendars synced at midnight. An unsent message. We should be more careful. He closed the laptop without taking screenshots. He did not need them. Memory can be more permanent than files. A week later, he found a receipt in her purse. 2 cocktails, 1 appetizer, 1 hotel room charge, billed to a personal card. Date matched her late meeting. James held the receipt between two fingers, paper light as betrayal itself. He placed it back exactly where it was, like leaving a tripwire untouched. At night, she slept inches away from him, breathing soft, unaware that trust had already been evacuated from the room. James lay awake, counting ceiling lines like data packets, building his exit plan the way engineers calculate structural collapse. Quiet, precise. No debris left behind that could hurt him later. The final straw came on a Sunday morning. They were supposed to visit her parents. She was in the shower humming. Her phone buzzed on the counter, screen lit with a message preview. Last night was perfect. I wish we had more time alone. James did not touch the phone. He just watched the words fade into black, like a truth stepping back into darkness after showing itself long enough. When Rachel came out wrapped in a towel, she looked fresh, renewed, like sin does not stick to skin if you rinse quickly enough. She kissed him, asked if he was ready to drive. James smiled gently, a smile with no warmth behind it. "I need to finish something for work first," he said. What he finished was not work. It was decision. He printed bank statements, moved half their savings into a private account, called his attorney friend quietly, direct, factual, like reporting a breach. No rage, just data, just consequences. That night, Rachel cooked pasta, laughed about something Daniel said on a conference call. James nodded, twirled the fork, tasted nothing. He watched her across the table, saw not the woman he married, but the woman she had become. Distant, hungry for validation elsewhere, unaware of the slow demolition beneath her feet. He did not yell, did not throw his chair. He simply looked at her and felt peace, cold, complete peace, because everything he needed to know was already known. Tomorrow, he would end the marriage she believed would endure no matter how carelessly she handled it. James woke before dawn, that quiet hour where the world feels paused, like a held breath. The sky outside the bedroom window was pale gray, Seattle rain tapping soft against the glass. Rachel slept beside him, unaware. Her hair sprawled across the pillow like nothing in her world had shifted. But James was already in motion. He slipped from bed silently, feet touching the cold hardwood floor. In the kitchen he brewed coffee, not for comfort, but for clarity. Steam rose in slow curls, almost meditative. He sat at the table, opened his laptop, and began. Bank portal first. Two-factor authentication. He moved half of their shared savings into his own private account. A legal, standard action, since both names were on the original. He canceled her access card, lowered her spending limit on the joint credit line to 0. Numbers changed on the screen like steel doors, closing one after another. No drama, just protocol. Next was the attorney. A direct call, no trembling in his voice, no hesitation. "I want to file today," he said. The attorney, an old friend from softball league, asked if he was sure. James answered with a steady breath. "Yes." The paperwork moved quickly. Betrayal leaves no room for second guessing. He drove downtown through wet streets, city waking up slowly around him. Traffic lights reflected off puddles like broken neon memories. He parked near the firm, walked in wearing the same calm expression he wore to job site inspections. Inside, he signed documents with deliberate strokes, ink crisp on paper like a final decision carved instead of written. No rage, no speeches, just clarity. When he returned home, the house was still silent. Rachel was awake now, brushing her hair in the bathroom, humming softly. James stood in the doorway, watching her reflection in the mirror. She looked like a woman preparing for another ordinary day, believing the world was still hers to hold. He placed a single envelope on the kitchen table, not dramatic, not accusatory. Just a white envelope with her name written neatly, the way he used to sign birthday cards. Inside was not a rant, not an emotional breakdown. It was truth in plain language, cold and clean. Rachel, I know about the balcony. I know about the trips. I know about Daniel. This is not a fight. There will be no shouting, no scene. I loved you quietly. You broke us quietly. I am choosing peace the same way you chose distance. The paperwork is already filed. No more pretending. James, he left his wedding ring beside the envelope. Small, heavy, final. Rachel walked into the kitchen minutes later, still adjusting her blouse, asking if he wanted coffee. James nodded once, took one last look at her without bitterness, only with a strange softness, the way you look at something you once cherished but no longer recognize. I will be out for a while, he said. No accusation in his tone, no plea, just information. He walked out the door without slamming it. He drove to the waterfront, parked near the pier, watched gulls fly through coastal fog. His phone vibrated repeatedly, missed calls, messages from her, then more. He did not answer. Back home, Rachel's world cracked. She read the letter, once, twice. Her hands shook. She called again, no response. She texted, "We need to talk, please." Then, minutes later, it was a mistake. "James, I was stupid. Come home." But the thing about regret is it always arrives late, after damage, after silence has settled. James sat in his truck, breathing slow, calm. A man no longer burning. Later that evening, he returned only to collect a few essentials: clothes, laptop, toothbrush, while Rachel stood in the doorway crying, mascara streaking like storm trails down her face. She asked for forgiveness. He looked at her gently, like looking through glass. "I am not angry," he said quietly, "but I am done." He walked past her, and for the first time since they met in the rain years ago, he did not look back. Rachel arrived at the apartment where James was staying 3 days later. Hair unbrushed, eyes swollen, coat thrown over pajamas, as if she had run out the door the moment courage hit her. She knocked, not with anger, but desperation. James opened slowly, no surprise on his face. He had expected this. The hallway smelled of old carpet and winter drafts. She stood trembling under the yellow light like someone who finally realized the fire she played with was real. "James, please," she whispered. "Can we talk?" He stepped aside, not warmly, not cold, just enough space for her to enter. That neutrality hurt more than shouting ever could. Inside, the room was minimal, a temporary space. A bed neatly made, a suitcase half open, coffee brewing on the small counter. No photos, no shared life on the walls, just emptiness where marriage used to live. Rachel paced, wringing her hands. "It was a mistake," she began, voice cracking. "It meant nothing. I swear to you it was stupid. I felt ignored, and work was stressful, and Daniel, I do not even know what I was thinking." James sat at the table, calm as if he were listening to weather reports. He did not interrupt. He let her speak, let her stumble through excuses that arrived too late. She knelt in front of him, palms pressed together like prayer. "I love you. You are my husband. We can fix this. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I will quit my job. I will block him. I will do anything." He looked down at her, eyes steady as reinforced steel. "Rachel," he said softly, "I did not leave because you made a mistake. I left because you made a choice." She froze. "You chose excitement over loyalty. You chose secrecy over partnership. You chose him. Maybe not forever, but long enough." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "It was not love. It was stupid, adrenaline. I do not even care about him like that." James nodded once, slow. Then why did you fix your lipstick before coming back to me? The line hit like a blade, drawn without raising the voice. Rachel broke, a sob with no shape, collapsing into herself. James stood, walked to the window. Outside, the city was gray, cars passing like lives moving without pause. I forgave you the moment I saw you come back from that balcony, he said. But forgiveness does not always mean return. She reached for him, fingers shaking. He gently stepped out of reach. Later that week, he did what many men never do. He confronted Daniel, not with fists, not with threats. He requested a meeting at a quiet coffee shop near the office. Neutral ground, public, controlled, like a cybersecurity debrief after breach containment. Daniel looked uncomfortable when James arrived. He tried to smile, failed. James, I guess I know why you asked to meet? James sat across from him, set a printed photo on the table, the one from the hotel entrance, Rachel laughing beside him. Daniel's face drained of color. I am not here to shout, James said calmly, stirring his coffee once. No lawsuits, no drama. I just want clarity. Daniel swallowed. It was a mistake. I know how it looks. You do not need to explain, James replied. You just need to understand something. He leaned in slightly, not aggressive, just present. You did not steal my wife. She gave herself away. That difference matters. I do not need revenge. I already left. Daniel sat silent, shame settling like dust. Are you going to tell HR? He asked quietly. James shook his head. No. Your consequences are between your conscience and your career. Mine was walking out the door. He stood, left a tip on the table even though service had not begun. No long speeches, no sense of triumph. Just a man finished. Outside, winter air cut sharp, clean. James inhaled deeply, a breath that felt like clearing a storm from his chest. Behind him, Daniel remained inside, staring at the photo like it was an indictment. That night, Rachel called again. He answered this time to give final closure. Please, she whispered, voice barely more than air. Tell me what to do to fix us. James listened, letting the silence stretch. You cannot fix a house by painting over cracks, he said. Sometimes you rebuild somewhere else. A single sob escaped her. He did not comfort her. Kindness at the wrong time can be another cruelty. When he hung up, he felt not victory, but stillness. The kind that follows endings, not war. Spring melted the last snow before James finalized the divorce. Papers were signed with the same steady handwriting he had used in their wedding guest book years earlier. No ceremony this time, no family gathered, just ink drying on legal pages and a quiet acknowledgement between two people who once promised forever. He walked out of the courthouse with no ring and no need to look back. The past did not chase him. It simply loosened its grip and let go. Months later, on a cool Saturday morning, James parked his truck near the trailhead at Mount Rainier. A gray mist hung low over the pines, dew gathering on the hood like silver dots. He slung a backpack over his shoulder, light gear, water, a thermos of coffee, the kind of preparation that once mirrored how he approached marriage. Intentional, measured, ready for changes in weather. The climb was steady, not rushed. The trail wound upward through damp earth and fallen branches, the kind that crack softly under boots. Birds cut through the silence. Wind threaded through towering firs. James breathed deeper than he had in years. Each step felt like reclaiming ground inside himself. Halfway up the ridge, he stopped to pour coffee, watching steam rise against a blue sky clearing with the morning. He realized he did not miss the noise, the explanations, the begging, the endless what-ifs. Peace had weight too, but it was lighter than heartbreak. He checked his phone briefly, not out of habit, but for closure. Rachel had sent messages weeks ago, then fewer, then none. The last one simply read, "I hope you are okay." He never replied. Silence became the final response. Somewhere in the city, Rachel lived differently now, alone in the apartment they once shared. She passed by the empty side of the bed each night like walking across a memory. She still scrolled through old photos sometimes, their wedding smiles, selfies in rain, cheap apartment dinners. Sometimes she stared too long at the picture of them sitting on that fire escape eating noodles and laughing at nothing. The girl in that photo looked younger, freer. Rachel wondered when she started wanting more than what she had, and when she stopped seeing the man who held her through storms instead of hurting her. She watched James's life from a distance now. Social media doing what social media does. A picture of him at a Mariners game with friends. A photo of him on a construction site. Sunlight sharp against his jaw, no ring on his finger. Then a post from today, taken by a friend, tagging him at Mount Rainier. He was smiling, relaxed, wind tugging his jacket. No bitterness in his eyes, just presence, just life. Rachel sat alone with her phone glowing against the darkness of her living room. She was older than she had been, not by years but by loss. She felt the ghost of what she threw away, not haunting, just ever-present, like a song you cannot unhear from across a hallway. Back on the mountain, James reached the overlook. The world below looked endless. Valleys like green oceans, snow-capped peaks cutting into sky. He stood with hands in his pockets, cold air burning his lungs clean. For the first time in a long time, he felt whole, without someone else there to complete him. He thought of Rachel, not with anger, not with longing, just with the understanding that two people can love each other and still outgrow the version of life they built. Sometimes betrayal is not the fall. It is the moment you realize you would have stayed even after breaking, and still choose to walk away. He sipped the last of his coffee, feeling warmth travel through him. The past did not hurt now. It simply existed behind him like the trail he had climbed. Visible, real, but no longer his burden to carry. He started the descent with a lightness in his step, the sun breaking through clouds like forgiveness he granted himself. Rachel would remember forever. James would live forward. If you have ever carried pain quietly, if you have ever chosen peace over revenge, share your thoughts below. I would love to hear what you think. Do stories like this remind you of real life? Where are you watching from? What province or city are you in? If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us for the next chapter. More stories of love, betrayal, courage, and rebirth are coming, and one of them might feel like yours.